Today I'm going to show you how to make this amazing animation in under 5 minutes. Let's start by selecting everything with A and pressing X to delete. Then we can press Shift A and mesh and add an icosphere. We can go down to this little drop down and turn the subdivisions up to 6. And then we can press Shift D to duplicate and scale it down. Then we're going to go into the Geometry Nodes workspace and press New to add a new Geometry Nodes modifier. Then we're going to press Shift A and search for Separate Geometry. Drop that between the two nodes and then press Shift A again and search for a noise texture. We're going to drop this over here and then we can press Shift A again and search for a color ramp. We're going to put this underneath here and connect them all up like this. Now we need to change the roughness, detail and scale to 0. Once you finish the geometry nodes, you can pull over this black bar and change the end of the animation to 120 frames, like this. Now we'll pull our playhead over to 120 and insert a keyframe on the scale. So press I while hovering over it, and that will turn it yellow and it'll insert a keyframe. Now go to frame 0, change this to 6, and press I to insert a keyframe again. Now if you press play, you can see your animation playing, but the outside layer is thin. It's not got any thickness because it's just a plane. So you can add thickness by going to the modifiers and adding a solidify modifier. So press on the search and solidify modifier. You can change this to 0.06. Now that your outside layer has thickness, it looks a lot better when you press play, as you can see. And next we're going to add a scene, so we can go back into the layout tab, move it up a little bit, so go to your X view, select everything and press G and Control to move it up 2 squares. Next we're going to add background, so press Shift A and mesh and plane. We're going to scale this up by 50, so S and 50. And then we're going to add a camera, so press Shift A again, go down to camera, clear the rotation by selecting all of these and typing in 0. Now if we go to camera view and press G and Z, we can move the camera backwards to above the scene and we can see the ball. Now let's go to the semi-rendered view mode and then go to the materials tab with the inner ball selected and press new material. We can change this color to a lightish blue, turn the roughness down and the metallic up. We're actually going to leave the outer ring white and the same with the backdrop. Now Shift A to add a light, so go down to light and area. We're going to scale this up a bit like this and then rotate it by 90 on the Y direction, so RY 90. Now to move it, we're going to use G, Shift Z to move it on the X and Y planes and move it to about here, and then move it slightly upwards on the Z direction, so G and Z to about here, and then point it towards the wall. Now if we go to front view mode, we can turn up the lights to a reasonable level, but if you go to the camera view, you can still see that it doesn't look quite right. So we're going to add a HDRI from polyhaven.com. I will leave a link in the description. It's called Overcast Soil Pure Sky, and we're going to download the 1K version. Now we can go over to this tab here and change it to an environment texture. Go to Open and navigate to your downloads and find the HDRI, then press Open. Now we're going to change our render engine to Cycles from Eevee and go back down to the World tab to change the emission values because it's quite bright. So change this down to something like 0.4. Now we can go over and find a frame that we like that looks nice. And then we can go over to the render settings and change this to 100 so that it won't take too long. And then to test that everything looks great, we can render that. I think this looks great, so I'm happy to render the animation now. Go over to your output settings and you see this /tmp. That is the file where your images will go because this will render in individual frames. You don't want that, so you go to wherever you want your animation to go and create a new file. So you can create a new file, and I suggest you call this frame cache, but I already have 2 frame caches, so I'll call this frame cache 3. Now you just need to press on the accept button twice and all your frames will go to your frame cache 3 folder. Once you've done this, you're pretty much ready to render, so just make sure that all your settings are set right, and press Render Animation. Remember that if you have a GPU, then you'll want to set your render hardware to GPU compute instead of CPU because it'll make it a lot faster. I'll see you in the next one, and as always, have fun! Goodbye.